On the night of May 4th, 1984, three teenagers drove down a gravel road in rural Wisconsin and found something that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. A woman, lying at the side of the road. She had been beaten so severely that her face was unrecognizable. Her hands had been cut off. And she had no ID, no name. No one came looking for her. 40 years have passed. She still has no name. This is one of the most haunting unidentified victim cases in American history, and it is still, to this day, unsolved. It was the night of May 4th, 1984. Three teenagers were driving along Old Line Road, approximately 4 miles west of Westby, Wisconsin, when they came across a gruesome scene. Westby is a small city in Vernon County, farm country, and quiet, the kind of place where nothing much happens. Old Line Road is a rural gravel road running through farmland and woodlands on the western edge of town. At night, it is almost completely dark. Between 11:15 and 11:30 p.m., three people driving along Old Line Road saw a body lying at the roadside. The teenagers drove to a nearby farm to report what they had found. A patrol deputy was dispatched from the sheriff's office in Viroqua. After a brief discussion, the reporting persons led the deputy to the location of the body. Upon arriving at about 11:50 p.m., the deputy noted vehicle tracks making a U-turn on the freshly graveled road. The tracks would turn out to be one of the most significant pieces of evidence in the entire case. But first, the woman. The woman's face was bludgeoned beyond recognition. She suffered a broken jaw, a broken eye socket, and her dentures had been smashed inside her mouth. She had sharp force injuries to the left ear, possibly caused by a knife. A model of her likeness could only be created after mortuary personnel reconstructed her face. She became known as the Vernon County Jane Doe. Based on that reconstruction and physical examination, investigators were able to piece together a partial picture of who she was. She was a white woman, estimated to be between 50 and 65 years old. She had blue eyes. Her brown hair was going gray at the temples and was worn in a perm. She stood around 5 feet tall and weighed approximately 150 pounds. On her abdomen was a 4-inch surgical scar. In her mouth were dentures with the numbers 420 and 289 inscribed. Her blood type was O negative. She was wearing a black dress with a paisley print, a blue turtleneck sweater, a multicolored coat, and nylon stockings. On her feet, she had tan slip-on shoes in a size 8.5B. Both the coat and the dress were home-sewn. That detail, home-sewn clothing, suggested a woman who was practical, self-sufficient. Someone who had made things with her own hands, which makes what was done to her hands all the more disturbing. The killer had gone to extraordinary lengths to make sure this woman could not be identified. While no attempt had been made to conceal her body, the labels of the clothing had been removed to prevent identification. Think about that for a moment. The killer left her body in plain view at the side of a road, but took the time, in the dark, to cut out every clothing label. Even more gruesome, her hands had been chopped off and were never recovered. This would have been to prevent identification via fingerprints. Did the killer think her fingerprints were on file somewhere? That question has fascinated investigators and researchers for 40 years. Removing the hands of a victim goes far beyond ordinary concealment. It speaks to either a specific fear of fingerprint identification, suggesting a woman with a criminal record or a history with law enforcement, or a level of premeditation and cold calculation that points to someone who had thought this through very carefully. Her face had been rendered unrecognizable from the extensive damage done through blunt force trauma. No face, no hands, no labels, no identity. Whoever she was, someone had decided she should disappear completely. After the case was publicized in local newspapers, a couple came forward to tell police that they had seen a suspicious man that same evening. They had seen a bright yellow compact car pulled over at the side of U.S. Highway 14, approximately 3 miles from the dump site, at around 9:45 p.m. on May 4th. The man appeared to be returning to the driver's seat from the passenger side of the car. When he noticed the witnesses, he got in and drove away quickly. When police directed to where the car was parked, they found a broken denture, blood, and a men's quartz Seiko watch. They also noticed fresh tracks in the gravel indicating the driver had made a U-turn. Based upon the tire tracks, investigators believed the driver had been startled, that he had pulled over to dispose of the body here, been interrupted by the couple driving past, and fled in a hurry. The couple identified a bright yellow color associated with a 1982 Datsun from a color chart. Thousands of state vehicle records and manufacturer archives were examined, but no vehicle of significant interest surfaced. So they had a witness sighting, a confirmed location, tire tracks, blood, a broken denture fragment, and a Seiko watch with a serial number. The watch was examined by Seiko and the Wisconsin Crime Laboratory. The band had separated from the watch at one end. The Seiko watch, almost certainly belonging to the killer, had a specific model number and a specific serial number. It was a man's watch. It had been left behind in a panic. To this day, that watch has never been traced to its owner. Beyond the investigation into the killer, there was an equally urgent question. Who was she? Investigators developed a number of theories about her background, drawn entirely from what she was wearing and the details of her body. The home-sewn clothing suggested she may have been from a rural background or a woman of modest means who made her own clothes, a skill more common in older generations and in small town or farming communities. The inscribed numbers on her dentures, 420 and 289, should, in theory, have been traceable to a specific dental laboratory. Dentures were often numbered by the labs that made them, which should have allowed investigators to identify the dentist or lab, and ultimately the patient. Despite extensive circulation of this information through dental laboratory journals across the country, no match was ever found. Bulletins were designed and circulated through police and coroner circles, dental laboratory journals, and cold case groups across the country. Authorities have long believed that Jane Doe was not from the immediate area in which she was discovered. They reached out to parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota that were connected to Highway 14. The surgical scar on her abdomen was another potential lead. A 4-inch abdominal scar suggests a significant surgical procedure, potentially a hysterectomy, an appendectomy, or another major operation. That surgery would have been performed at a hospital by a surgeon with records. But without knowing her name or where she was from, there was no way to narrow down which hospital, which surgeon, or which records to search. Every clue pointed somewhere, and every lead ran cold. Despite the fact that over 4,000 leads were logged over the forthcoming years, her identity still remains unknown, along with the identity of her killer. The case was broadcast in a 3-day news special titled "Catching Her Killer: Justice for Jane Doe" in 2013 to uncover new leads, yet no lead proved useful. On August 12, 2015, her body was exhumed and sent to the crime lab in Madison, Wisconsin for testing in hopes of identifying her. The body was returned and buried the next day. The DNA Doe Project, a nonprofit organization that uses investigative genetic genealogy to identify Jane and John Does, took on her case. As of the most recent information available, research is still in progress. Current Sheriff John Spears supports the initiative. The Cold Case Unit of the Wisconsin Department of Justice, Division of Criminal Investigation, and Crime Laboratory Bureau are assisting in the investigation. Investigative genetic genealogy, the same technique that cracked the Golden State Killer case, works by uploading a DNA profile to public genealogy databases and tracing family trees backwards until a match is found. It has identified dozens of unidentified victims across the United States in recent years. It remains the best remaining hope for giving this woman her name back. In 40 years, nobody has come forward to say they are missing a woman matching her description. Nobody has filed a report. Nobody has said, "That sounds like my mother, my neighbor, my friend, my colleague." That silence is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this entire case. A woman in her 50s or 60s in the 1980s would typically have had people in her life. Children, perhaps, siblings, friends, co-workers, a doctor, a dentist, a landlord. Someone should be missing her. The most common explanations researchers have considered: she may have been estranged from her family, cut off from the people who might have recognized her description. She may have been living alone, without close ties to her community. She may have been in a situation, such as an abusive relationship, financial vulnerability, or social isolation, that meant her disappearance went unreported or unnoticed. Or the people who knew her did notice and were too afraid of whoever killed her to come forward. She was buried in the Viroqua Cemetery under a headstone which reads, "Jane Doe, found murdered on May 4, 1984. The flowers which decorate her final resting place have been left by those touched by her lonely death." Somewhere there is a woman, probably born between 1919 and 1934, who lived a full life, who wore home-sewn clothes she made with her own hands, who had a surgical scar, a perm, blue eyes, and tan slip-on shoes, who was someone's daughter at the very least. She deserves her name back. If you were alive in 1984 and knew a woman who matched her description, blue eyes, permed, graying brown hair, around 5 feet tall, between the ages of 50 and 65, who disappeared around that time, please contact the Vernon County Sheriff's Department. Their number is in the description below. She has been waiting 40 years. It is long past time.